So good morning, everyone who's present here. We'll be starting the session now, and just to give you a quick summary of what we will be doing in this session, as mentioned in the events platform, this is a 3 day session. Uh, yeah, it's a 3 day session, and the session will comprise of all the basic Python requirements that will help you get started with your career in Python, or we could say will have you a good base with Python. And the days will be 16th, that is today. We'll be having the second session on 17th and the third session on 20th. So during these three sessions, during three days, we'll be covering a lot of Python related topics, and they will be really helpful for you while getting started with your college. So if you're new to Python, it's amazing, and if you already know Python, it's not that you cannot attend this session. We'll also be giving you a few bonus Python tips and tricks that might help you later, and you'll be learning a lot. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be starting the session off for you guys. So if you all are new to Python, let me just share my screen to you. Yeah, I hope my screen's visible now. So if all of you are, let's assume many of you might not have Python installed in your laptop. So we'll just have a quick brief through on how could you go on with installing Python. So you could just type Python in any browser that you prefer. Go to python.org. When you go to the download section, you can obviously download the latest Python that is available. That's Python 3.9. Once you click on it, there will be a file downloading, and just save the file. We'll give it a few seconds while it's downloading. So installing Python is not any hassle, and it's not like you need a coding platform, or you need Visual Studio or Sublime Text to start coding in Python. It literally takes no time. You can start coding right in the IDLE of Python. So for today, we won't be stressing that much on uh, what do we say, the platform that you'll be coding on. You can just download Python from the website, install it. So when we open the exe file of Python, it's going to give you this pop-up box, and it says install Python 3.9, and you'll have two options. You can do a custom install of Python, so you can choose where you want to install your Python. By default, Python will be stored in your C drive, in your user file which you're using, and it'll be stored in the local programs. Now, the most important thing while installing Python you have to do is you need to add Python to your path. So this is very important, because if you miss this step, then you'll have to manually go and type in a few commands in CMD to add Python to your path. And that could be a hassle. To prevent all that, just click on this option called as add Python to your path, and everything is set up. I'm going to do a custom install. So for custom install, like I already have a Python in my C drive, and I don't want it to, clash with the other Python I install. So for that reason, give me a sec. Yeah, for that reason, I'm going to do a custom install. And when you're doing a custom install, keep all of these checkboxes ticked. Moving on, I'm going to choose a location where I would like to store my Python, and I would like to, for now, store it in my E drive. Sorry, in my E drive, and I'm just going to make a new folder, and I'll name it Python. Yeah, so I'll select that folder. Now it goes in Python. So now I have installed Python. Now you get a checkbox to click yes, and after this you're all set to start using Python. So we'll give this a bit of time. It's going to run for a while, and I already have installed Python. I'm just going to type Python in my start bar, and you can see after the installation of Python, yeah, give me a sec. Yeah, so after the installation of Python, you can see this things pop up, that is ideally Python. You can also see a few command line Pythons showing up here. Now we're just going to click on IDLE for now, and after you click on IDLE, you're going to have a pop-up window like this, and it's just going to say Python shell. Now this is your basic Python interface, and at this point you're ready to code even large scale projects using the same IDLE. We just use Visual Studio and Sublime Text for the ease of coding. but it's not like if you don't have those, you can't code right now. So for now, we'll be using this, and we'll be showing you Python notebooks that are made on Google Colab. You can read them after this session, or you can put up a few questions if you have about Google Colab in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them for you after this session. So once you have this, just to test, you can just type this simple line, and it says print hello world. Now this is the first program that you'll be writing as a programmer, and this is the starting step for your path. And once that prints it, then it just a game of coding and writing to make a new file using IDLE. So you cannot type multiple lines in your IDLE interface in the shell. So note down the shortcut, that is Control plus N. So after you press Control plus N, there'll be a small window that pops up. It'll say untitled. It's just a file that Python has created for you. So we're just going to type the same thing here. We're just going to type print, and we're just going to do hello. All right. Don't bother about the syntax right now. This will be all taught to you. This is to just show you how you can get started with all the files where you can write your code and you can get started. So this is my shell right now, and this is the file I'm using. So after I type print hello world, I'm just going to add another line just for the so this is our beginner session. So after we do this, we're just going to go here, and we're just going to do save, and it's going to tell you where you want to save. Right now I'm just going to save on my desktop, and I'll tell it first step .py, and it's automatically going to recognize this as a Python file, but you can for any Python extension file, it'll be stored as .py for Python, and you can just click save. Once your file is saved, you will have a small file appearing on your desktop. And to run this, you just have to click this run button, or you can press F5 just like Windows tells you. Once you click that, you can see this shell prints out the output. So now I can write a full-on web scraper, I can write hacking scripts, I can write a full-on AI ML model right in this small window and have the output print out here. So you can get started with Python in like just 5 minutes. So this is the first thing I would like to show you. Now let's assume you want to type your code in some kind of IDLE. So I would suggest you a very simple install. That is 1 second. So I'll close these. Yeah, so this is Sublime Text. Now you can do your Python scripting in this, and you can find millions of videos online on how to type Python. How to install Sublime Text and combine it with Python. So this is the same thing. Just for the ease of it, I'm just going to name it second step .py. I'm going to save this. After it's saved, you can see it has automatically given it a few colors. So it's given blue for print, and it's given yellow for any string kind of thing. You'll be learning this in the further parts that we'll be teaching you right after this. Now in Sublime Text, you do not have to go to the shell, press F5 and all that. You can just press Control B to build your code, and here is the output of your builded code. So that is why people prefer a few coding platforms like Sublime Text, or you can say Visual Studio. They're just for the ease of it. But for now, you can get started with just the shell and your bare hands and keyboards. So that will be from my side. I'll hand it over to Gaurav, who is going to now take up on more advanced. He's going to get you all started with Python. He's going to teach you what this print that I had written was. Why do you have to put these brackets? Why do you have to put these double quotes? All of this will be taught by Gaurav now. So Gaurav, you can hand over. I'll stop sharing my screen. You can do that now. Gaurav, you there? Hello, Gaurav. I can't hear you if you're talking. Just make sure your mic's unmuted.
Hello, Karthik. Am I audible now?
Yeah, Gaurav, you're audible now. You can continue.
I hope my screen is visible to all now. Okay.
Gaurav.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Gaurav, and I would be continuing where Karthik left. I would be explaining you what Python exactly is as a programming language, and then moving on with the functionalities. So Giving a brief interview of what Python is. Python is a object-oriented high-level programming language. Is it it was made for ease of coding for everyone who like wants to code, but then is like kind of not so into coding, because the language over here is pretty much easy to understand. It like you can go on with the layman terms of understanding ki this is what is happening just via reading what the method name is, or what the function name is, or what the keyword is. So uh, Python has two versions, Python 2.x and Python 3.x. Nowadays, no one is actually using Python 2.x. So I would be moving forward with explanation of functions and basics in Python 3.x. So over here, what I'm using is a Google Colab notebook, which is nothing but open. It is an IDE which is open sourcely available to everyone. Over where you can just you can make a document, proper document, and you can add in your code statements also. So whatever codes I have written over here, you can try it side by side on your IDE if you want to. And I'll be starting this now. So when you
Just a second, Gaurav. So everyone who wants to use this notebook, Gaurav, just share the link for this notebook to the chat box, and everyone you can just click on this link and clone the notebook. Once you clone the notebook, you can do what Gaurav is doing. You can try your own statements inside this notebook, and you can interactively work around. So just clone the notebook. Gaurav will be sharing you the link simultaneously, or I'll share the link. Gaurav, you teach. I'll share the link. So open the notebook. There'll be an option to clone the notebook. Once you clone the notebook, you can start editing the notebook itself. Okay. So Gaurav, you may continue now.
okay. So I have actually shared the link over the chat bar. If you guys want to, you can use that. So so whenever you're starting a programming language, the first thing is to see how to get an output, so that like you can see like if you like type something, so this is how it will be visible to the person who would be actually seeing it, so, like to the users. So the first thing is we are going to use a print statement. So what print statement does is, print statement is actually a function is in Python 3.x. What a function is, it requires a bracket. So like inside the bracket, whatever you pass would be passed on to some internal predefined functions, wherein it would be interpreted and the thing is printed out. So over here, what these double quotes means is, this whole thing is a string. So what string is, I would be explaining it further on down. But then over here, what we are printing is a string. And if I press shift enter, which is like running this particular command, we get the output as okay. Yeah, we get the output as, this is an example of using Python function that prints the text as output. So this was a statement which I had given to print. So via print, I'm just defining that I want to print something on output area which has been provided to me. So over here, this is the output area, and whatever I had written inside it has been printed. So if you want, you can change it. Like we can actually print a normal integer function also. So output would be 5. So over here, I'm defining that I want to just like print 5. So I'm getting 5 as an output. This was for the printing part. You can print multiple types of variables, which I would be defining below. After we are done with how we like print statements, we would be moving on to how we get input from the output screen. So over here, we have a function named as input. So what input does it? It defines that I want something from the user that he needs to enter. So I'm defining the method name as input. This is a predefined method. So input लिखो, and then उसके बाद फिर you can like add on a string statement if you want. You can add on a statement like defining कि I need you to enter something over here. So for that, I have written please enter an input here, and if I press shift enter, this will run and it will ask for an input. So let's say if I type 99.9 and I press enter, so that input has been taken. So over here, the input initially, whenever you're using Python as a programming language, the input which you're given is taken as a string input. So if you see, I like the output which has been shown as in quotes. So what code defines is that it is a string input. So moving on, I would be explaining how to get different kind of inputs later on. So next part is comments. So what comment is? Comment is actually an important part uh, of your IDE, as well as when you start with programming, you actually like need to define what exactly this statement does, what exactly this function will be doing, and who created the notebook, so on and so forth. So for that, you with the code which you are writing, you can have some statements which won't be executing when you actually like use your interpreter or compiler to compile it. So to understand, like, this is not supposed to be computed to get an output or compute anything else. So for that, we use comments. So in Python, the comments is uh, is done via using of the hash symbol. So if I like run this statement, you only see hello as an output, but the first two part, which was this is a comment and print out hello, is not shown on the output screen. Only the print, which is the code part, is being shown. So comment, this is how we do comment. And if you want to like add on with multiple lines of comments, let's say you're writing a big paragraph explaining what particular thing is doing, or you want to just like add on a big comment statement. So we have multi-line comments available in Python. For that, you can go with hashes on each line, which is kind of multiple. It is kind of overload. So for replacing it on this, we have another way, which is like you can use triple quotes, which is either.
There's some background noise in your mic.
Um, is it okay now? Hello. Okay. So for multi-line comments, you can either use these single quotes, wherein I would be writing hello, or you can use the double quotes. So the double quotes functionality I've already like given an output over here. And if I run this, so you see that only the print hello part is being printed, and these all parts are not getting shown to the output screen. The user won't be able to see this unless and until that person is actually reading your code. So for that, we use comments. So moving on with variables. So now like we are kind of done with how to take input, how to print to output screen, and how to add on comments. So the basic building block of any programming language would be variables. So what variable is, it helps you define a value to a particular letter which you would be defining, and via that you would be using that particular variable throughout your code to compute stuff or to store values. So what exactly happens in the background when you're defining a variable is, in CPU or in your memory heap, you have an area wherein memory is like free memory is available, and you have an address attached to that memory. So for ease of access for the user, like for the coder who's coding the program, we kind of give a name to that particular memory area where we are storing value as 5. So int a equals 5 defines that a is my variable, and it is storing a value 5 over the address memory area in the heap memory. So this is what variable is. In Python, we don't have naming convention as such. So like you can so you have naming convention, which is like you can define any name from A to Z. You can use 0 to 9 and underscore, but and these are case sensitive. So like if you use VALUE and capital VALUE, those two are different. Different values stored to VALUE and VALUE. So this is a capital word, like whole capital, and this is single V capital, and these are smalls. So this kind of defines that these two are different variables. In Python, you actually don't need to define this. Like you don't need to define the data type of the variable. You can directly allocate the value to it, and automatically it understands this is the kind of variable which I'm defining. So for basics, in Python, we have integer as a data type, float, string, list, dictionary. Further on, there are like many more of them. So for now, we would be mainly focusing on the basics, which is like integer, floats, and strings, so that you can like grasp on it bit by bit. So if I define value 1 equals to 40, so what I'm defining over here is an integer value. So integer is similar to what integer in mathematics was, any value between negative infinity, let's say, to positive infinity. But over here, we would be having a defined value of that range. But then this only stores your integer values. You won't be storing your decimal numbers or fraction numbers over here, only the integer values. And those are bound to be real. Then you have next, which is I'm defining a decimal number. So for decimal, we go with float as a variable type. So over here, I'm just like writing the variable name as value underscore float. So this is what the variable name is, which is storing a floating value, which is 99.99. And then I have another variable which is storing a string value. So what string is? String is group of alphabets brought together. So you can name it as a sentence or a group of words or group of letters. So that is what string is in layman term, I would say. So like anything which is defined under double quotes or a single quote is string. So string in normal terms would be any statement which we are writing in normal English language would be a string. Moving on, I have like use type, which is a function which defines what kind of data type this is. So I'm just checking that what kind of data type value one is, value float is, and value one is. So if I run this statement, it will give me an output as this is of a class integer, as I said before. This is a float value and this is a string value. str is what string means. So these are some basic variables in Python. And then moving on to typecasting. So typecasting, you won't be like regularly using it, but then it is something which you like have to keep in mind because it has its own use. So what typecasting does is when you have different kinds of values over here. So I have integer value, float value, and string value. So as initially entered before over here, whenever I take an input, it is coming, the input has been taken as a string value. So in a string value, if you like say that you want to do is you want to get output of this, let's say you want to do this, but then you're storing the input value as a string value. So what happens is you are adding how this will look like in actual terms would be, let's say that 99.9 is a alphabetical way. I would say that it is ABC. So what you're doing is you're adding ABC plus 5. So that kind of doesn't make sense because string is something else and integer is something else. So you can't add a value to get another value over here. What this will do is it will give you output as ABC5. This is string concatenation that I will explain later on. But then just to give a basic idea, typecasting is required in places like this wherein you have an input as a string, because in Python all the inputs are taken as a string input, and then you want to do mathematical computation over it. So for that, what we do is we typecast it. So what typecast means is you are converting your type to some other type. So over here the type was string, and if I do this, it will convert the type to integer. So this is like changing its type from string to integer type. That is what typecasting means. So uh, over here I have given some examples wherein I'm defining a string value and then converting it into integer value. I'm defining a string value, converting it into a floating value, and I'm converting a normal float value to integer value. So again, I'm just showing the type of the same. So if you see, the string value has been converted to integer type. This string value has been converted to floating type, and over here the floating value, which was 3.14, which is a decimal value, has been converted to an int value, and the value has been converted to 3. So it kind of like took the lower number, which is 3. So like I'll move on with operators now. So what
Just to interrupt you, Gaurav. So there's this question
uh,
asked by Bhumika. So she's
yeah.
asking what is float. So I'll just tell you, float is nothing but a number with decimal points behind it. So if you know an integer could be 1, 2, 3, 4, so on till infinity, a float could be 1.14, 1.12. It could be anything after a point. So that's the decimal value added to an integer makes it a float variable. So that is what float is, if that answers your question, Bhumika. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll move on with operators now. So operators is nothing but since we have defined variables, so we would be doing some computation over it, right? Like you take an input and then let's say you want to add, subtract, multiply, and you want to perform some operations on it. So for operation, we require operators. So we have different kinds of operators. Firstly, we have arithmetic operators, which is what basic mathematics operators are, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, floor division, and exponent. So exponent is your power function, which is like a to the power 2, a to the power 3. That is what exponent is. Floor division is when you are dividing to the lower value. Okay, this kind of will go. I will explain it I will explain it through the example given below. So So over here, first I've defined a variable and I have assigned a value 98 to it. So variable will store value as 98 and then I'm performing addition operation on it, which is 98 plus 2 using plus operator. Then I am subtracting 50. So initially I have value as 98. So variable value has 98. Then I'm adding 2. So I get 100. Then I'm subtracting 50. So I get 50. And then if I multiply it by 2, I get 100 again, and over here I'm dividing it by 3. So what division does is, over here as you see the output is 33.33333. So this is what normal division will look like. So over here you are getting a decimal value also, but if you do floor division, the value which is like your variable value is 100, so 100 divided with variable value is 33.3336 and you're dividing that by 4. So if you do this, if you do this calculation, you will get the output as 8.33333. So that is again a decimal value, uh, but then the output which you get is 8.0. So what this does is it removes the decimal value which was there and gets you the lower value of the number. So if it was 8.5 also, you would have gotten the output as 8. So this is what will actually look like in your normal division, wherein you are remaining with some reminder, but then the quotient which you get is your output. Hopefully this is understood. And then after that, what I'm doing is I'm showing you how exponent works. So over here, I'm like doing variable power 2. So 8 ka power 2 will give you output as 64. And then I'm using modulus function. So what modulus function does is, it is to get you output. It will give you the output as the remainder value. So if I divide 64 by 5, right, I'll get the quotient as 12 and remainder as 4. So over here my remainder is the one which I'm getting as the output. So whenever you want to find out what the remainder value is, you use this function which is modulus. So these are some basic arithmetic operations which you can do via using arithmetic operators. Moving on with assignment operator. So assignment operator is it is used to assign a value to a particular variable. So normal assignment is done by equal to symbol. So like whenever I do variable equals 33.5, I am giving this value to this variable. Like this value is assigned to this particular variable, hence assignment operator. And then we have some shorthand operators, which is an assignment operator because we are giving the same value again to the variable itself. So over here, variable plus 5 equals 0.5 is equivalent to variable equals variable plus 0.5. So this is a shorthand operator as well as an assignment operator because it would be assigning the value to variable again after computing this particular uh, computation. So initially the value is 33.5, but then after I do this plus equals 0.5, I get the output as 34.0, which is like adding 33.5 plus 0.5. And then moving on, we have shortened operator for subtraction, which is minus equals to 10. So I am subtracting 10 from the initial value of variable, which gives me 24. Then I am using multiplication, which is multiplication equals to. So this is again a shortened operator which has the similar value as variable equals variable star 2. Like variable is will be assigned to a value which is variable multiplied by 2. And so similarly, all the below function are similar. So like over here we are dividing it by 3, whatever value we get over here. So over here we get the value as 48, and then we are dividing it by 3, so we get 16, and then we are floor dividing it by 3. So again the output was 3.199 if you do a normal division, but then since we are doing floor division, we get the output as a truncated value. Okay. And then we are doing exponent of that particular value, which is 5 power 2, which is 25, and then we are finding the modulus of the same. So variable modulus equal to 3 means variable equals variable modulus of 3, which again will give you value as 25 modulus 3, wherein your remainder would be 1 and quotient would be 8. So the output which comes in is 1. So moving on with the other operators, we have comparison operators. So this is used for basic comparison between two values. So if you want to say that if y is greater than 2, you will be using these operators. So over here we have equality, which is like defining whether this is equal to this or not. So 10 equals 10, it will return you a value which is a boolean value, which is either false or true. So the output, whenever you're using these particular functions, the output which you would be getting is in boolean format, which means it only has two values. Either it can be true or false. True in the case wherein the condition is satisfied, which is like this particular condition is satisfied, or and false in which this condition is not satisfied. So over here the first comparison operator, which is equality, has been used, which is 10 equals 30. So over here I'm checking whether 10 is equal to 30 or not, which is not, so I get the output as false. Then next is less than operator, so I'm checking if 1 is less than 100, and obviously it is true, so I get the output as true. And you can use this equality operator to check strings also. So as I said earlier, Python is case sensitive. So if I'm doing python and smaller letters, smaller like lowercase, and then I do the same thing with P capital and everything else in lowercase, it will again check each individual value. So P would be compared with P, Y would be compared with Y. And since the capital P and small p are not equal, we get the output as false. So you can, you have like more, um, you have some more functions, which is like greater than equal to, which is like normally what we have, like if the value is greater than or it is equal to so and so thing. So 40 is greater than equal to 40, the output would be true. Less than equal to is similar. Not equal to is something like this. If I do this and if I run it, so over here what I'm checking is if 10 is not equal to 30, which is true. So that is why the output comes out to be true. So moving on with logical operators. So what logical operators are, if you have done these in your 10th and 11th and 12th, you would be familiar with this, like not, and or operators. So this will compare some of the values between two value or a single value and then return an output. So this is a small image describing how this actually works. So if I have one value and its value is false, and if I apply not to it, the value would be converted to the opposite of the initial value. If it was false, it will be converted to true, and vice versa. And whenever you use and will return true value only if both the values are true, then only it will return true value. Else it will return false value in all the other cases. I would be explaining this below with some example also. So this is just a table defining when you actually get the value as true and when you get the value as false. OR operators returns true value in either of the case wherein you have one value as true, you will get the output as true. If both the value are false, then you'll get the answer as false. So these are the two examples showing what I explained over here. So over here, what I'm doing is I'm checking if this is one comparison, so you'll get the output as true or false. This is another comparison, you'll get the output as true and false. So 10 is greater than 1, which is true. 5 is greater than 15, which is false. And I'm applying an AND operation over here. So output which I will be getting is I have to compute is this. I have to compute true and false. So this is what I'm currently computing. And if you look at the table over here, if one value is true and the other value is false, you get the output as false. So if I run it, I get the output as false. Now this is another condition where I'm doing is 1 not equal to 1, which is false because it is equal, and 5 greater than 15, which is false. So over here I'm showing you as OR operator. So false or false will return you as false. And you can like try out different scenarios on your own and you can match it up with this table. Moving on with identity operator. Identity operator has two methods, operators, which is and is not. What we are doing is we are trying to find out whether the identity of this particular variable is what we think it is. So let's say that you defined a as 5, right? And then you don't remember which particular variable was defined as 5. So you will kind of want to know which variable you defined as 5. So over that case, you can kind of use this identity operator. So what I'm doing is I am checking if, let's just convert this. Variable equals 5 and then I'm checking if variable is 5. So I'll get the answer as true because variable is var is the variable which was defined the value as 5. So when I'm taking the identity of var, which is 5, it gives the output as true. If I change it to 6, then I get the output as false because var variable is not the variable which was storing value as 6, it was storing value as 5. So identity operator is used whenever you want to check the value is if you want to check some value in some memory location to some particular variable name. This can be done to string operation, string variable, string type of data type also. Like it will work on each and every kind of data type whichever you would be using. I'm giving two examples. One is of integer and the other is of string. So over here I have defined var as hello, and then I'm checking if var is the one which has the value as hello. So it gave the answer as true. If I, and again I said that Python is case sensitive. So if I convert it to small h, I'll get the output as false because the value which is stored over here is different from what is it was stored over here. So the identity would change and hence the output is coming out as false. Moving on with membership operators. Membership, like since till now I'm just working with basics, right? Like you don't actually have moved on with list and more depth into strings and all. So you kind of won't be understanding it right now. But then if you want to research on it, what the membership operators like consist of is in or not in. So I would be explaining it later on in today's session or tomorrow's sessions whenever we are done with other data types, so that you can understand where this is actually used. So moving on with strings. So string is one of the data types which is available in Python. String is uh, any character or any character which is available in ASCII code. ASCII code is no, any character which is available to you inside double quotes is what will be considered as string in Python program. What this basically means is you can just type anything inside double quotes. That is what string is. And this actually has index and all, which I would be explaining it later on down. So strings in Python is a immutable sequence data type. So what immutable means is once you have defined a value to like value of string to a particular variable, you won't be able to change it later on in your program ever. Like this value won't be able, you won't be able to change it unless and until you actually come back to this particular position and be like, I want to change it. Then you can change it. But then if I do this, if I say that I want to store str1 there, I want to change the value to hello. So if you do this, right, it will give you an error because you already had stored this string with the value name as string1. So you won't be able to do this. But earlier we have seen that in your normal integer type, like over here, when the value was integer, we were able to change the value of variable. Like in the output, we see that the value of variable was changing continuously. But over here, if I do this in string, if I do the same thing, it will give me an error output. So this was showing how it actually is done. So like, what the error would be. Let's say I'm defining string as hello, and then what I'm doing is I'm doing str1 as str1 plus 5. If I do this, I get an error saying that must be string, not integer. Okay, so this is one error which I'm getting. If I do this, you don't wait. Okay. You can try this out once in your kernel, in your IDLE, and it will surely give you an error because strings are immutable and you will get that error if you try to change the value of string in your program later on. So how to define a string? You can define a string in via using a single quote, a double quote, or a triple single quote, or a triple double quote. All these are considered to be strings, and you can define it in either of the ways. So just to show you an output, over here I'm defining a single line string. So the output is this is string in Python, and then str2 I'm defining a multi-line string. So I've used enter over here. So this is the first multi-line string, and the output which you see is shown as a multi-line string output. So for multi-line string, you can use triple quotes. Uh, Moving on, let's say like you have this particular situation wherein you want to do is you want to do this. You have defined a string, and inside the string you want to uh, showcase this particular Vikings with double quotes. Okay, so if I do this normally, I'll get an error output saying that this is an invalid syntax because you can't have double quotes inside double quotes, because this kind of defines is that this is a string and this is another string, and what I'm doing is I am placing Vikings as a term over here, which which kind of confuses the interpreter as what actually is happening over here, because you are defining two different strings over here. So to escape this particular kind of scenarios, what we do is we just add on a backslash over here, and this will remove the problem. So what this does is this particular function helps you with removing this confusion that this is a part of the string and it has some special meaning over here. So if I do print txt, You get the output as we are the so-called double quotes ke andar Vikings from the north. So this kinds of helps the interpreter to understand that this particular letter is not is a part of the string and is not carrying any special meaning, because normally what we do over here is if I do this, so I'm defining two different kinds of string over here. So to escape that situation, we use escape characters, and escape characters in depth would be explained by Karthik after some time. I'm just giving you a brief of what exactly escape character is and in which kind of situation you can use it. So moving on with string functions. So since we have defined what string is, we need to like look into how you can actually apply some functions over the string which you are using. So let's say you get a string which is hello, and then you want to find out what actually is the length of this particular uh, string. So we use len function, which returns you the value, which returns you an integer value, which is the length of this particular string value. So HELLO is a 5-letter term. So the output which you would be getting is 5. Then let's say you want to get a particular value from the string. So what actually, whenever you define a string, right, what actually happens is inside the memory heap, the value is defined as like each individual character, which is like H, then ELLO, is having its own area in the memory heap. So this whole is under the name of grade, and it will have an index. So H will have index as 1, E will have index as 2, L will have index of 3, another L will have index of 4, and O will have index of 5. So what is happening over here is you are defining each particular value will have each a particular index assigned to it inside the string. So if I want to like access H as a value, what I do is I do greet 0. So I get the value output as H because I'm accessing the first value. So in Python, the indexing actually starts from 0, not from 1. So like you need to keep that in mind. The actual indexing to this actual indexing would be this way. So when I do greet 0, I get the first letter, which is H. Moving on, there are some more functions in string, which is like checking if the whole statement is alphabet or not. So in string, you can actually do this. If I like define, if I define where as 5, and so I'm defining a digit value over here. 5 is a digit value. It is not alphabet, right? So if I do the same thing, okay, let's just do this first. So once I run it over here, if you see string var is only alphabetical, the answer is false because the value it is storing is a digit value. So if you want to like, if you come into scenarios wherein you want to check whether the value which you're storing inside the string is a digit, or is it a special character, or is it a alphabet term, then you can use this particular function, which is alpha is digit. There are many more functions which you can look up on your own. I'm just defining a basic function which is, and then alpha is used for checking whether the term is alphabetical or not. So alphabetical means your all the alphabets which are there in alphabets, which is like A, B, C, D, E, F, G till Z. So if you have only those terms inside your string value, then you use and you want to check whether that is what the string is, then you use function is alpha. For different cases, you have different functions, like you have is digit also. So what this does is it will check whether it is a digit value or not. So digit will consist of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on so forth. There are many more functions, you can look that up. And moving on with the case wherein you want to check whether your string is in lowercase or not. So what lowercase means is normal. This is lowercase, this is uppercase. So if you want to check whether the input which you're getting is in lowercase, so you just use function is lower. So what this does is it will check whether the string is in lowercase or not. Over here it wasn't, so I get the output as false because my string is in my first letter of the string is in caps and the other values are in lowercase. Hence I'm getting the value as false. And if I like change it to smaller case, like all the values are in lowercase now. So this particular output I would get is that true because the whole string right now is in lowercase. And you can actually convert your value from lowercase to uppercase. So for that you have a function which is known as upper. So when I use upper function, what happens is it will convert each individual value to uppercase. So this is the output which I'm getting with each value as a caps lock as a capital letter. And then there is another function which is starts with. So you have many variations of this functions. You can find out ends with and so on so forth. So what starts with does is it will check this particular string in your actual string. So over here, I'm checking if HELL is there in hello or not with H as a caps lock, H as a capital letter. So I get the output as false because my starting term is small HELL. So that is why I get the output as false. And this is what start with function does is it just checks whether the starting value which you're defining over here is same as what was defined over here as the starting value. And lastly, the function which we are showing today is rstrip. So what strip function basically does is if you have a tab or let's say you have spaces in your string and you want to remove it. So what you can do is you can use strip as a function, and over here I'm using rstrip. So what rstrip does is it will remove spaces from the right hand side of your string. So this particular space would be removed. So as you see, firstly, when I was printing this particular variable, I got the output as space banana, and then there was space. Obviously, we can't see it right now, but then when we strip it out, like while using R strip and I'm removing the spaces from here, the output which I'm getting over here is of all fruits, there is a space and then banana, and then the space over here was removed, and then is my favorite. So this kind of removes spaces from the right hand side. If you use else strip and you run the same code again, okay. If you use else strip, so you can see from the left hand side the spaces has been removed, and the right hand side spaces are still there. So this is what strip does. And over here I'm just focusing on left and right hand side of this strip function. If I show you proper strip, then from both the side the function would be the spaces would be removed. So as I said earlier, whenever you are defining a string, it will get an index assigned to it. So you can visualize this as h. Uh, you can visualize this as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are the value which are given to each particular individual character over here. So string, as I said, is a group of word, and a group of word is a group of letters. So each individual letter over here will have a index attached to it in the memory heap. So H has an index of 0, E has an index of 1, L has an index of 2, L has an index of 3, and O has an index of 4. So this is normal indexing wherein you're going from left hand side to right hand side. So let's say that you want to get the last value but then in a reverse order. So what we do is we have negative index in Python, which is nothing but you start from reverse from right to left now, and you do the same thing again. So over here 0 ka value would be -1, L ka value would be -2, this would be -3, this would be -4, and this would be -5. So it is nothing but doing the same thing in opposite direction. And over here is so over here I'm just showing you a small example wherein I'm printing from the opposite side of the value hello ka third letter from the reverse side. So the third letter would be 0, 1, 2, 3. It is L. So the output which I receive is L. Okay, so slicing would be taken up by Karthik later on. So I'm leaving this particular part right now.
So guys, now I'll be taking up from slicing. So Gaurav, I'll share my screen.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, so let's just quickly brush through what slicing is. And okay, yeah, so now my screen is visible. Yeah. So let's just see what slicing is. Now, let's say you have a string called as hello world and you want to split it in, or you want to have a space between hello and a word. So what you're going to do is you're just going to use the slicing operators that are that's the colon. So when you use colons, you can do the slicing operations that are on any kind of variable. So right now we're using strings. Later in the session, you will be also be taught about lists, and list slicing will be really important for you guys in the actual practical usage of Python. So for now, if you see, there is hello world, and we want the first five characters of hello to be split out from the whole string. So we're going to do is write the start index, the colon, and the end index. So when you write like this, it actually means is start from the 0th index, go on till the 4th index. So you do is 5 minus 1. So the number you write at the end, you only have to go till -1 of it. So if you count through hello world, it is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you just count hello, it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are the 4 characters that will be sliced out of this whole string. That is hello. Now, if you want the last, or if you want the 3rd to 5th character, so always remember indexing in Python starts from 0. This is a very important thing every one of you should know. Whenever you count a string, whenever you count an array, which will be taught to you, whenever you count elements in a list, everything starts from a 0. It's not like your counting starts from 1, 2, 3, 4. Here in programming world, the counting starts from 0. There are a few exceptional languages like MATLAB and a few languages where the starting is 1. But for Python, C++, Java, the indexing starts from 0. So this is very important to remember. And let's assume we want to remove the characters from hello world, and they are LLO. We just want these 3 characters. So if you count 0, 1, 2, so our first L lies on the number 2. So we write the starting character, and let's assume we want to go till O. So O is on the 4th position, just like I told you, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we just do 4 plus 1, 5. We go till the 5th character. So if you do 2 to 5 slicing, you will get LLO from hello world. So moving on, there you can also do is reverse string slicing, just like Gaurav told you about negative indexing, that if you count from the start, it will start from 0, and if you count from the end, it will start from -1. So always remember, your negative counting does not start with -0. There is nothing in maths called as -0. So you always start counting with -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. So in the same way, let's assume we just want to print the whole string in reverse. This is a very important usage of Python. This will be asked you a lot of times in your competitive coding skills and all. This is very important for you guys to know that if you want to reverse a string in Python using slicing, this is then you can use is a reverse slicing operator, that is putting double colons and -1. So after you do that, the all of the string will be printed in reverse. So you can test it out by yourself in the notebook, as I told you. Moving on, we'll go to f-string formatting. Now, f-string is a special kind of printing which you will be using in the advanced stages of Python. For now, let's keep this part. We'll come to this later when we go through the course in the next 2 days, because f-string is also important to know for all of you. But for now, printing will do all the job for you. So when you're going to displaying values using f-string, this will also come in the later stages. This is just an advanced way of printing and using variables name at the same time within your string. For now, if let's assume I just want to print DSC is an educational company, whereas DSC and educational both are in variables. So what do we, instead of using f-string, we can also do is a normal printing statement. By doing print, we're going to do the first variable name, that is name, plus. So whenever you apply a plus operator inside your print statement, it concatenates two strings. Concatenation means joins two strings. So if you have Karthik and you have Bhushan, that's my name. If I add a plus in middle in Python, they get concatenated and my name becomes Karthik Bhushan as one without a space. So I'm going to write name is, and educational is another variable. So I'm just going to do plus type of company, and I'm just going to end by the word company. So this will be a basic application of print for most of the use cases that you'll be doing in your Python. So it prints out the same thing, just that printing using f-string gets easier when you're using variable names within your string. For now, you can use this, which is the plus operator within your strings, by concatenating the two strings. Also remember, if you don't add a space in front of is, then there'll be no space in front after the variable. So you see DSC is, so it's joined. So you need to take care of that. Whereas in an f-string, that can easily be verified. So now moving on, we come to the most important part, that is the if else statements. Now what is if and else? So we can just tell it, let's assume if it rains we have to hide, else we roam. This is a very basic scenario I'll give you. So if it rains we hide, else we roam. So this is what if else is just for computers. So we tell it, if there is a value that is divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0, we print it's an even number, else we print it's an odd number. So this is how if and else works. So this was a very basic application of if and else that we showed you here. So let's assume you have to write a code. You're given a code to write which prints if your number is even or an odd number. So we take an input, that is a value. We check if it's divisible by 2. How do you check divisibility by 2? You divide it by 2, and if the remainder is 0, so just like Gaurav told you, if you use the percentage symbol, it always results out the remainder of the division. So you get 0. Now we check if my value is 0, then we print it's an even number, because yes, it's divisible by 2. If my value is not divisible by 2, so that comes in the else statement, it prints out it is an odd number. So if you see here, when the value was 5, it printed 5 is an odd number. Now if I do value is 6 and I run the same code, my code will print out 6 is an even number. So this is a very important application of if and else, where you tell the computer if this is the case, then you print out this statement or you do this kind of functionality. So it is not necessary if else can only print. You can also give a function here and you can tell send it to this function, send variable. So you can say send value. So there can be a function which will teach you what functions are in the future. So you can call a function and you can send the value right here. And if you don't want to call a particular function, if it's not even, you can call a different kind of function in the else statement. Moving on, what is an else if statement? So now let's assume there is a criteria. So for voting, you need to be above 18. Now let's assume there are multiple cases. If my age is more than 18, if my age is more than 60, then we have to apply different conditions. So we can say if my age is more than 60, we send the senior citizens to senior citizens voting booth, where they'll have a bit more facility to roam around and will be a bit safer during this COVID time. So let's consider that scenario. Right now, in this scenario, we are just considering a different age timeline. So let's say we take the age as the input, like Gaurav did. So we take the age as the input. We check if my age is less than 13. I print out it's a child, like a child. Now, if my age is less than 6, I will print out baby. Now, these are nested. So if you see this here, you can nest a if statement inside a if statement. You have, let's assume that my age is around 7. So what I'll do is, my age lies between 13 and 6, my age is 7. So what should be printed? It should print out child for 7 years of age. So what I do is, if I check my age is less than 7. So sorry, 7 is less than 13. Yes, that is true. So we'll just type it out. 7 is less than 13. This will give me true. And now if I go down here, it will just check, oh yeah, if my age is less than 6. So is 7 less than 6? It should give you false. So it will not print out baby. It will just print child and it will move on. Now let's assume my age was more than 13. So let's assume my age was just 14. So if my age is 14, I'll check if 14 is greater than or equal to 13. So that is true. 14 is greater than 13, does not have to be equal to. If my age was 13, it would still let me in because 13 is equal to 13. It'll check this. And if my age is less than 19, so is 14 less than or equal to 19? So what happens here is, 14 is greater than 13 prints out true. 14 is less than 19 prints out false. Sorry, it prints out true. My bad, my bad. So both the conditions are true right now, and there's an AND operator. So for AND, if you have true and true, your output will be true. If you have true and false, your output will be false. And if you have false and false, it will be false. So this is very simple table that you'll have to keep in your mind for and OR. That will come. We will put it up for you guys in a small photo so that you guys can refer to it and remember it. You'll have to remember this, that whenever there's an AND operator, for an AND operator to result a true, both the operations need to be true. And if you're using an OR operator here, no matter anything happens, if both are true, it will print out true. If one of them is true, it still prints out true. If both of these statements are false, then my condition changes and it equates to false. So there is this very slight difference with and or, and it's very important when you're using if and else statements. So that you'll have to keep in mind. And the last thing that is there, if my age is more than 19, it will just print out adult. So this was a very, very basic code for if and else using if else. Now, that will be all for today's first session. For your activity, as in for your practice, we'll be putting a link in the chat box. And the link is nothing but a practice site where you can actually go and practice your skills that we have taught you today. And they're all organized in a step-by-step format. So I've shared the link in the chat box. You can go click on it. I'll just show you how you can proceed with the activities here. So if you look on my screen, there are the basics, then there are advanced that will be teaching you after the 2 to 3 sessions. Hello world, ignore the ads. Yeah, so if you see here, they have written a good description of what print statement is. You can just go through it if you have any doubts. You can also practice your Python right here in your web browser without even having to install Python. I recommend you guys use your own Python so that you can keep a clean repository for yourself of what you have learned, because after you refresh the site, all of the code that you have written will be gone. So if I just type hello world here and I run this, you'll see this hello world written on the website. So you can just go through this website. There are a few exercises at the end. So for the first exercise, let me show you an example. It says use the print command to print hello world. So now here, if I just run this as it is, it will say the wrong output because it's currently printing goodbye world. We want to print the hello world. So you're just going to print hello instead of goodbye. You're going to run this again. If you have written it correctly, if the output matches with the desired output that they want, you will be qualified for the next tutorial. You can move on and learn all these tutorials like this till the part we have taught you, that is if and else conditions. You can find the conditions So here are the if and else conditions. You can just go through them. They'll also teach you about and or, just like we did. So if you have any doubts while doing this, these exercises around the time, so you can ask us, and in the next session, that is tomorrow, and we'll clear them up for you really quickly. So I see a Q&A question of will the recording, yeah. So after this session, you can we will be uploading the recording, and you can look at the recording. If you have any doubts of what we have taught, you can just re-go through it. You have any doubts, you can also ask us on our Discord channel. So we I think all of you are a part of our Discord channel. If you're not, we'll be sharing the link for the Discord channel to you in a while. And once you are on the Discord channel, you can ask us questions there. We're always available there to answer your questions. Uh, if you WhatsApp us or if you email us, it'll be time consuming even for us to go through all your emails or all your DMs. So I would prefer you text us on Discord. We'll be online there, and there's a huge community on Discord where anyone and everyone can answer each other's questions and be helpful to each other. So I would suggest you guys join the Discord channel, and that will be all for this session today. Hope you had fun. You will be also receiving a event form, that is the feedback form for today. You can just go. It'll take you literally hardly 5 seconds to fill that form. I would suggest you fill the form, and that will be all, folks. If you have any questions, we'll be here for a while, waiting for you guys for any questions. I have also added the Discord link in the chat. You can go and join us there. Get your roles. That is the first year. And also there is uh, just give us a second. So if you have any doubts, you can ask us in the Q&A section. We are right here to answer all of them for you. So we'll be waiting for your questions. If you have no questions, it'll be great for us, because then we'll assume all of you have learned something. Next session, we'll also be going through loops, that is for loop, while loop, which will be very useful for you while printing huge amounts of data, or while going in a loop. So we'll be going through that tomorrow, and he'll be also going into depths of Python, where you will actually start learning Python, which will be really useful for you in real life. And at the end of the session, we'll be sharing you a few project ideas for all your beginners, so that you guys can get started with your own Python journey. And yeah, so I guess that will be all for this session, guys. You can have a great day now. If you have any questions, we are still here. You can ask us. We are ready to answer them. But you can leave the event if you have no questions. So it was great seeing all of you here. Hope to see you tomorrow.